Hello, Augies Worldwide. I'm Dave Kassler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, here with another episode of Ask Dave. And this is literally an Ask Dave episode. I got a question from a patron, and I want to go through the answer on the subject of station identification. This is from John Nehedlo, and he sent a message, and it says, Dave, my wife and I are studying our technician exams coming up next month, and he's perplexed with this question. Okay, the question is T1F05. What method of call sign identification is required for a station transmitting their phone signals? The A is send the call sign followed by the indicator RPT. RPT would be repeat. Okay. Send the call sign using a CW or phone emission, Morse code or voice. Send the call sign followed by the indicator R. No, the indicator R in CW means received. In voice, we would use the term Roger. Roger means got that, got all of it. Send the call sign using only a phone emission. Okay, well, let's take a look at that in the book. Okay, that's right here. Now, this is T1F05, and it says the correct answer is B. Send the call sign using either a CW or phone emission. And it shows where in the rules that's found and where it's found in this book, page 8-4. So we'll go back there and look. But first I want to point out a couple things. First of all, what is phone? Phone is voice. So you'll see it sometimes as single sideband, FM, AM, things like that, things that are voice signals that you can just listen to and hear. And the old way of referring to that, when World War II-ish, there were really only two ways of transmitting, and one was phone, and short for using a microphone, and the other was the CW, or telegraphy. So phone would have been telephony, a term you occasionally hear these days, but not often, and telegraphy. Those two terms are not used in ham radio very much, just phone and CW. Now, let's go to the page that's talked about in the book, and it's up here in for where it says identification. Okay, and there are a few questions in here, including the one on transmitting phone signals. So phone is voice, okay, and over here we can find the answer. Now, remember with identification, we identify once every 10 minutes or at the end of a QSO, okay? So you don't have to, if you're going to, got a rapid back and forth, like, I'm following right behind you, is that the orange store coming up? No, it's the green one. Okay, I'll keep an eye out for the green one. Well, you know, that's, you don't need to put your call sign there every time. Now, the requirement is that it be every 10 minutes, at the end of 10 minutes, or at the end of the QSO. Best practice goes beyond that. Best practice says you give your call sign at the beginning of the QSO. Okay? So you would say, you know, KE0ABC, this is KE0OG. Okay, now I've given that at the very beginning of the QSO. Now, it's very possible if you're doing FM and you really recognize the voices and so on, you don't need to do that, and it's only required at the end. But it is best practice to do it at the beginning. Let's look at this paragraph here. Your call sign can be given in Morse code by voice. Now, voice, again, is phone. In an image, if you're doing SSTV, or as part of a digital transmission, and you're really wide open there. That could be RIDI, that could be PSK31, that could be PACTOR. That could be FT8, FT4, JS8 call, whatever. Okay. The thing about the digital is that in the United States, these are considered modes that anybody can listen to with minor effort on their part. Okay. So they can tell if you identify in the digital mode by listening to it in whatever digital mode it's in. In other countries, that's not always true. For example, if you're doing PSK31 and you're doing it with DX, sometimes you will hear the DX station transmit Morse code at the end of the QSO. Okay, so it's a little different, but in the United States, we don't have to do that. We can do it in PSK31. What they're saying here is that you can use a different mode to identify your station. Now, it says video and digital call signs will need to be transmitted in standard protocol or format, so anybody can receive it. So that would be slow scan television, RIDI, PSK31, FT8, PACTOR, so on. If you are using phone or voice, okay, so if you're using a handy-talkie, or you're using your station at home, whatever, you would normally, and this is best practice, it is best practice to identify in whatever mode you're using. So if you're using FM, you're not going to identify an AM, you're going to identify an FM. But it is legal to do other things. If you're using phone, you're required to identify in English. Okay, if you're an American ham, even though you may have conducted the conversation in Spanish. Okay, this is important. There are, or for that matter, up close to Quebec, in French. But the most often spoken second language in the United States is Spanish. And there are a lot of people who speak Spanish. And so they would very likely have a conversation with a friend or fellow ham in Spanish. But you have to identify in English with the English phonetics. So that would be Kilo Echo Zero Oscar Golf. Now, the thing about that is that the alphabet we use, the phonetic alphabet for best practice, I will grant you sometimes I say King Edward Zero Old Grouch, but best practice is Kilo Echo Zero Oscar Golf. Now, I will point out when I'm working with DX, the Oscar and Golf are hard to understand over noisy channels. So I will often use what are very common phonetics in DX, Ocean, Germany. Ocean, Germany. I've even heard DX stations do Ocean Harmony because the G in German is, or in those languages, may be pronounced as an H sound. Oscar Golf is the correct one. By the way, in my pilot work, my call sign is November 8053 Romeo, period. Can't use any other phonetics. The phonetics that we use in ham radio are, in fact, from aviation. They are the International Civil, ICAO, International Civil Aircraft Association, or whatever it's called. Somebody will correct me on that. Please put it in the comments what that really stands for. And we use ICAO phonetics in ham radio. Now, so if you are using phone, you're required to identify in English, even though you are communicating in a language other than English. Okay, so if you just use the International Civil Aviation Organization's phonetics, you're okay. All right. Now, the FCC recommends the use of phonetics where you identify by voice. That avoids confusing letters that sound alike. On FM, it's easy to pick up the subtle difference in letters. On sideband, it's not. Okay. Now, here you go. Here is the answer to the question that John sent. right here. The standard phonetics are words in the English language as well. You may also identify by CW, even if using phone. I have never heard anybody do that. I do not consider that best practice. I mean, that'd be like holding up a code practice oscillator next to the microphone and while transmitting, pressing the code practice oscillator. You could do that. But I think that is not best practice. But it's legal. So that is the answer to the question. The answer to the question is B, bravo, which says, send the call sign using a CW or phone emission. Okay, the emission's just you're transmitting. Okay, CW is Morse code here, and phone is voice. Okay, so it is possible on all modes of voice. AM, single sideband, FM, digital voice like DMR, and so on. By the way, I got an email from Yaesu saying that their System Fusion is not proprietary, that anybody else is welcome to use it, although Yaesu's the only people using it right at the moment. I wish somebody would cross the barrier and build an FM radio that has DMR plus System Fusion plus D-Star, all in one radio. You pick. I don't think that'll ever happen. I think what's happening is that people are putting rooms together so you can connect to it by DMR and someone else can connect to it by D-Star, and you can hear each other by going through that room. It does the protocol conversion there. But DMR, by the way, the intelligibility in my mind, in my humble opinion, is not very good. So you might want to use phonetics on that because there is some degradation in the audio quality. I mean, if you're just using it for public service, it's not that much of an issue because these people are used to talking to each other in very specific terms. For example, when I had the wonderful opportunity in November of going on a few ambulance rides because of that GI bleed, when they communicated with their headquarters, there was a lot of structure. So the fact that the voice quality wasn't fantastic was not a problem. It's the same way with piloting. Piloting uses AM. And the reason they do that is because if you double with someone else, you can still hear both voices. And really good controllers can pick out both voices at the same time. But that's why they use AM still instead of FM, which would sound much better. But the quality of the AM isn't real good, but it's so structured that you can get through. By the way, you'll find the same thing with Morse code. When you talk on Morse code or use Morse code, I guess you don't talk, hello, on Morse code, but no, I forgot what I was saying. I'll cut that out. Okay, so there is the answer to the question. You can send the call sign using either CW or phone emission if you're using phone, which is voice, okay? Now, best practice is use voice when using voice. Use Morse code when using Morse code. Use PSK31 when using PSK31. By the way, all the PSK31 and digital programs have a little checkbox buried somewhere in the settings that they will automatically send your call in Morse code after each transmission. Okay? Because that's required in some countries. But it is not required in the United States. So please don't do it because it takes a lot of time and it's a waste of bandwidth. Here where it's so easy to get a piece of software that'll pick that up. So anyway, John, I'm saying John Nehedlo. It could be John Nejedlo, but I'm thinking the J is pronounced as an H. Thank you very much for your question. Thank you very much for your patronage. And if any of you would like to support this channel, you can go to patreon.com. That's Patreon as seen here, patreon.com, and put a slash and then KE0OG. And it will take you to my Patreon page, and you can do pretty much whatever you might like to do there. So, and what it is, it's a monthly thing, sort of like a subscription. All right. Well, thanks very much for all of your support. It's just absolutely wonderful. Thank you again. And until we next meet, 73.